Welcome back to Hoochos. Today on Hoochos, I'm going to be releasing this. This is a 3D printable moss pole for indoor plants. It is modular and has multiple parts, including a spike, a screw cap flap lid, reservoirs for the top, and a scalable size so you can tailor it to any plant that you like. This is kind of a necessity for what has been happening around here at the moment, because in the recent video that I did about hydroponic houseplants, I've been burdened with a rather exciting problem to have, and that is plants multiplying and outgrowing all of their pots. So today we'll be looking at repotting these plants into hydroponic grow media, a long-term solution, as well as giving them structure to climb in the form of this. This is a 3D printable moss pole. It is a hollow tube which allows you to fill it with sphagnum moss and give your plants something to climb on. It is modular, so the parts just screw together and allow you to add on to the structure as your plants grow. It has a spiked base which screws onto the bottom of the structure like so, and allows you to press the moss pole into the pot that you have it situated in. I've designed the print to be scalable, so this is the 100% scale. It is quite large, so you would use this for plants such as monsteras, probably in a minimum of like a 250ml or a 300ml pot, or you can scale that print down. This size here is 75%, and this is perfect for plants such as syngoniums or pothos. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to be repotting monsteras, syngoniums, and pothos. So, the media you will need. For the poles, I will be using sphagnum moss. This is available at your major hardware stores, and nursery supply stores are always going to be cheaper. I'll be using a scoria, which is just a volcanic rock. This is an inert media, and it will add weight and volume so that they don't fall over with the weight of the plants and the poles. And I'll also be using a hydroponic grade of cocoa coir, amended with magnesium and calcium, and that is our inert media. So first plant we're going to work with is this monstera, and we're going to split it because there's two plants. So we're just going to take it out of its pot. And I'm going to try and remove as much of the soil as I possibly can. There we go. So our two plants are separated. Just going to give these roots a quick wash. There we go. Now I'm not being too pedantic here. The hydroponic media does not need to be sterile. Don't stress if there's a little bit of dirt left on your roots. And number two, and I'll wash that as well. There we go. There's our two monstera plants split and ready to be repotted. Here's the pot I'm repotting them into. It's actually the same size. So I'm going to be reusing the pot that we just took them out of. But because there's two of them, they'll now have twice as much room each. The way that we're going to sort of layer the mix is we're going to do a kind of 50-50 cocoa scoria mix and then top it off completely with scoria. If you want to graduate and have more cocoa at the bottom and then work your way up to scoria, you can do that. I think this is just going to be the most time efficient way of doing it. I'll just fill up my pot just under half full of scoria. Tip that into my mixing bucket, fill the pot half full of cocoa, like so, and I can add the cocoa into the mixing bucket. Mix that up, and this is what we're going to be planting into. We can start putting the mix into our pot. Just fill it up like a quarter. Figure out where you want the roots of your plants to sort of be situated, and kind of plan out your placement of the plant and the pole, and then fill around it. So before we complete filling up the pot, we're actually going to add in our moss spike. The reason I'm doing this is because once we top it up with scoria, it's going to be hard to push through. And I don't really want to go damaging the roots and stuff. The moss pole actually needs to be filled up with moss first. So we're going to do that. Take your sphagnum moss, separate some out, and we're just going to pack that full of moss. You can pack it from the bottom or the top. The top's probably going to work better. Get it in there, and you can use the holes in the side to sort of work it down. This is actually the first time I've done this, so it's quite exciting. And we can just screw that onto our base spike. Throw a bit more sphagnum moss in the bottom. And this is going to allow the water and nutrient to run down the pole and escape out the hole in the bottom. Add this into our pot, and the way that you want to do this is you want to find where the plant is going to potentially throw out roots and lean back onto the pole. I'm going to take a stab at here, literally and figuratively, and we're going to just sort of try and push it into our substrate like so. To that, you can add a second level. So take another section, fill it up. Once it's full, we can just screw it on like so. And to top the pot off, we are just going to use scoria. Pure scoria, and just fill around. And there is our monstera, all potted up and ready to climb. I'm going to give that a little bit of a water in with a half-strength hydroponic nutrient. My hydroponic nutrient is Campbell's Diamond Spec Tea, and it works for pretty much all plants. I'll leave a link in the description to where you can get it. And I'm going to do the same for the other monstera. But for this one, I'm using the smaller 75% moss pole. There we go. And we can just push that into our pot. Like so. Very cool. And again, just going to water in with some half-strength hydroponic nutrient. It's about 1 to 1.5 EC. Put our plant into our pot. And to the top of our pole, we can add in our cap. Now, as you can see here, this is just a screw attachment that has a flippable cap because I wanted this to be as easy as possible for people to flip open and pour nutrient or water down into the sphagnum moss. And I'm going to repeat that same process for a few of my syngoniums and pothos. You can see the air roots coming out of the syngonium, and these are going to be tied against our moss pole. And you can see there, we've got a really nicely rooted plant. So I'm just going to knock the media off the top of this. These are already in cocoa, so this is 100% cocoa. And we're just going to pop those into our pots and fill around. Being mindful of where those roots are, we can place our poles into our substrate, like so. And we can use some black rubber plant tie to tie them back to our poles, aiming to get the roots to touch the moss, like so. And I'm going to pot these epipremnums back into the pots that they're in actually. I'm just going to make the pots a bit heavier with the scoria so that if the pots dry out, they don't topple. How good. That is how you can use a 3D printer to print yourself moss poles to grow houseplants hydroponically at home. So there's gonna be some blokes out there that use this 3D print to justify the existence of their 3D printer to their girlfriend. And to those blokes I say, you're welcome. There are other accessories that I've made to go with this print, like reservoirs that fit onto the top so that it drip feeds down through the moss pole and into the base pot. Now there are two styles of reservoir that fit on top of these moss poles. One is a drip style and the other is a wick style. So the drip style has a small hole at the base If this hole doesn't print properly, because it's only 0.5 of a mil, just use a small drill bit to drill it out the size to suit the amount of flow that you want to achieve into your moss poles. The prints don't need to particularly be a watertight print because we actually want them to leak slowly onto the moss pole. The wicking style has a tube that goes up through the center of the reservoir, and you would just add in some wicking materials. You feed the wicking material up through the tube in the center and then back down all the way to the bottom of the reservoir, and this will wick out slowly over time for a more gradual release of nutrient and water. It is all made to be printed without supports. Everything is printed screw facing up except for the reservoirs and the caps, which you print with the screw on the bed. You will need to use a brim for the body sections as there's not much touching the print bed. I'm printing with a 0.8mm nozzle, but you can use a 0.4 if you like, it doesn't really matter. And any filament for this print will do just fine. All of the files are available on my Patreon, and you get access to all of the 3D prints that I've ever created and featured on this channel, which there are plenty of. Happy houseplanting, happy hydroponicking, and I'll see you next time on Hoochos.